Hindsighters, welcome to Keeping It Real with Miss T, where we give you the real tea with a twist. Tonight, you are in for a real treat. So please get your notepad and a writing gadget or whatever it is that you use to capture good and solid information. This phenomenal leader is a lover of fitness and health, not just physically, but also financially and spiritually. She holds several degrees and she is a proud member of the Divine Nine Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. So, welcome, 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 Miss Beth Richardson.
Hi, how are you?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, we thank you for joining us tonight. And I know that introduction definitely doesn't do great justice. Sure did just a little bit. But if you want to share with the listeners a little bit more about you and what it is that you're going to carry with us tonight.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me on the show tonight. I'm super excited to be here and have this wonderful conversation and dialogue about financial stewardship.
Mhm.
So, my background, I have 20 years experience in the financial industry. And so I'm a banker, but also life experience too when it comes to dealing with finances and being a good steward of what we all have been blessed with. And, oftentimes it's not how much we've been blessed or, how much in terms of our finances, but more importantly, what are we doing with the little or the much that we have?
Right.
Are we being fruitful? Are we growing it? Is it balanced? Are we multiplying, being able to help, others that we come in contact with? So this topic is so important. And through my vocation and through my just life experiences, this has really become a passion and a mission for me to really teach and share with people how to become better stewards of our finances.
Absolutely. So before we even get to some of the questions and things that we're going to touch on, touch a little bit on the difference between prosperity and riches.
Oh, that's really great. I think when we talk about riches, most of us have been at this point where we want to just accumulate material possessions, whether it's the big home, the fancy cars, having just nice, large sums of money in the bank.
Mm,
It's worldly thoughts, worldly vision, right? That's
mhm.
what riches is. But I challenge us to really move towards a place where we're comfortable even saying the word prosperity and prosperous. I think prosperity is so different from riches in that it's more than material gain. It includes growth. Growth in every area of our life. It's balance.
Mhm.
Prosperity means it's those things that we can't obtain and we cannot get without a higher being.
Absolutely.
So we want to have prosperity in our life, but we have to recognize that prosperity does not come without faith and a higher being. It's those things, and prosperity is lasting and it's
Mhm.
eternal. Um, it's really a deep sense of provision and protection rather than riches, which is more about accumulation.
Right. Absolutely. So, and sometime in life, people don't want to, sometimes people feel like when you're coming from a spiritual or biblical background, that they don't want somebody like just always pushing God or pushing things and faith in their face, right? They just want things totally solid. But oftentimes they got to realize that that's where your help come from, regardless if you want to admit to it or not, right? So,
Absolutely.
how do you teach individuals that are in that secular mindset and giving them the nuggets of the biblical mindset to understand that it all aligns, but you really need that faith to understand to be ingrained for that be ingrained in you. How do you explain the secular and biblical to those individuals?
Sure. So the first thing that I really start off with is just asking a question because I really want individuals to really take a look at what is it that they're really doing. And so when you find individuals that struggle or don't really understand how and faith and why faith is so important in financial stewardship and
Mhm.
growing those resources, I just ask, how has what you've been doing working for you? You know, and that's the reality. So it really takes the onus off of really having this conversation and dialogue about biblical versus secular. It just says, hey, how is what you're doing working for you? You know, or if you're pulling off of your own strength, off of your own resources and your own who's who, your centers of influence, your investment partners, and oftentimes it's amazing to me that we seek financial advice and resources from people who are no better off than we are. And so just asking that simple question, how has what you've been doing working for you? And if you find yourself still beating your head up against the wall, still stressed beyond measure, still late in making payments, still find yourself overwhelmed with debt, then maybe give another perspective serious consideration.
Right, good stuff, good stuff. So let's move to chopping the budget. So share with us that good book that Dion Lucas and you co-authored together, and why is it such a necessary tool? And I think when you touch on it, I think it's, definitely talking about high schoolers, but it can still be used for adults as well. And the importance of it, because as you stated, people often listen to other people who do not have any more than what they have. So tell us about chopping the budget.
Sure. So Dion Lucas, as you mentioned, I co-authored this book with her, and I have to admit, Dion was the brainchild for this book. She invited me to come. Dion is a mathematics instructor, and she invited me to come and share with her high schoolers the importance and really kind of thinking now about their financial preparation and stewardship for life, things to really start learning about and taking advantage of, and really those things to stay away from or, being mindful of. And so after the workshop with her students, they were so inspired. They had more questions, wanted to start taking additional classes online and taking tours of financial institutions. They were just eager and hungry to learn more about what it means to steward your finances. How do you invest money? How do you deal with money? How do you handle money? And so she and I just said, it would be awesome to to create a book that's very simple, that even though we geared it toward teenagers, anyone could use those financial principles to either jumpstart their financial journey, or even reset their financial journey, to say, hey, I need to stop what I'm doing, rethink what I'm doing, and come up with a different plan. And so from that, Chopping Budget was birthed. And we tried to make it very easy, a simple read, an enjoyable read, but also a read where anyone can go back and do self-reflection. What is it that they need to do? Because I don't think financial stewardship, learning how to budget and save and all that stuff, it's not a one size fits all.
Mm-hmm.
So it really came out of teaching a seminar with her high schoolers. And she goes, I think we need to put this, on paper. And I enjoyed that, because I'm a firm believer that what goes on paper becomes intentional. So I always say, on paper, on purpose.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So one of the financial tips, number 8 to be exact, you kind of state, or you, Deanna, you both talk about the friends that you choose, and you have to choose your friends wisely. So expound upon, and you kind of touched on this, who you're listening to financially. So expound upon the importance of who we bring into our financial circle, or to even our personal circle and space, and what the importance is of that.
Yeah. So 2 things from that particular principle. And I tell you, we have a lot of dialogue with our teenagers on that particular principle, because many of us have done this in the past, but we caution that when it comes to money, money strengthens relationship, but it can also break and tear down relationships. And so what we try to teach our teenagers and anyone, that let's not allow family or friends to borrow money. You can stay away from that principle alone. We're going to be successful in our relationships. And here's why. if we're going to, if a friend or a family member asks us for money, the one thing that I encourage all of us to think about is, can I give them this money, freely give them this money, and not expect it back? You know, is it going to put me in a bind if I give it? And so if we're able to give someone money and we have the expectation that we don't need it, it's not going to break us, it's not going to cause us financial strain, then that's what we should do. We ought to give it and not allow them to borrow, because everyone has good intentions. They do believe in their mind that I'm going to pay you back. But what happens if they don't pay back? And if they don't pay back in a specific period of time, it causes those relationships to strain. So I always encourage folks that if your family or friends are going to ask you for money, even though they say, I'm going to borrow the money and I'm going to pay you back, I challenge us to say, you know what? And we don't have to say it out loud. It's just in our own decision-making process that, you know, I'm going to freely give them this money. So if I never get it back, I don't lose a friendship. I don't lose a relationship. I don't strain one over money. Money is one of the biggest fights that we see in relationships. Mm-hmm. And so we want to try to avoid that. So that's what we talk about with our teenagers is make sure that you're able to just give the money. And if you get it back, great. Consider that a blessing. Right. But if you don't, you're not tearing a relationship. So that's one of the aspects of dealing with family and friends. And the other is always, again, I love asking great questions. And why would we take financial advice from someone whose financial picture isn't better off than where we are? You know,
yes.
I had a situation where a cousin would always call me for financial advice and doing a great job of, you know, taking some baby steps to really change the mindset of the way he and his wife viewed money. But I remember an opportunity where he came into a large sum of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I'm like, man, this is great. But I think it was also a test too. Mm-hmm. And he never called me for financial advice. And I thought that was kind of strange. But I reached back out to him and I said, hey, I know you've come into this large sum of money. What are your thoughts on it? What's your plans? You know, how can we help strategize so that, again, this money is lasting, that you can grow and multiply it so that you can be fruitful and help other folks?
Absolutely.
And he says, oh, my wife and I have figured out what we're going to do with it. She thinks I need to do this and she thinks I need to do that. And I said, what's been your wife's experience with balancing her own checkbook? And he paused and he goes, oh. And the reality is that oftentimes when we learn a financial principle, we think we understand what it means to steward finances. Mm-hmm. And we don't, and then when we come into large sums of money, we ask people that don't know how to balance their own checkbook for advice. And then what happens, we find ourselves a year later in the same boat we were in previously, which is financial bondage. And so it's so important to center ourselves and find people who are better off than we are financially. Not to have the appearance, but they truly know how to invest and manage and save and create budgets. And so surrounding ourselves with that wisdom, with that knowledge, prepares us better for success, instead of asking people that's in our own circles that are struggling just like we are.
Absolutely. So when you talk about budgeting tips for a healthy lifestyle, what is the importance of creating a budget and, you know, sticking to it? Because, you know, like you said, we all know someone who came into, whether it be a large, small, large, or medium sized budget or funds, money, right? And it's hard for them. And you notice they go broke in 2.3 seconds. Like you
Exactly.
said, they don't, you hear from when they're broke, right? But as soon as they come into some money, they go just dormant. They go crickets. You don't hear anything from them. And then they become the best people about money. They know everything about money now that they've gotten money. Now they know everything about money. But
Right, right,
then what happens is they have wasted the money on some nonsense because, like you said, they were listening to other individuals and now they're broke again. And then what do? They pick up the phone. Now they calling you again. So
right.
it's that crazy cycle. So what is the
Exactly.
importance of creating a budget and how do you stick to it? Because it's tough.
You're exactly right. No discipline is key. And I
Hmm.
tell everyone, no discipline seems pleasant at the time. But I tell you that if you remain disciplined, it produces a harvest of righteousness, of fruitfulness for those who remain diligent. And discipline is one of the hardest things, but discipline
Hmm.
gets us out of our financial struggles. We have to change the mindset. We have to change our habits. We have to do things differently from the way we've always done it in
Hmm.
order to be successful and in order to win with money, to win with our finances. So creating a budget is absolutely necessary. And I'll tell you, no matter what stage you are in, whether you're overwhelmed in debt, whether you are managing your debt, or whether you are debt free, you need a budget. A budget is a lifetime creation and discipline. Dave Ramsey, he is debt free, a
Hmm.
multimillionaire, but guess what? He still creates a budget. A budget gives you simply a vision of where your money should go, but more importantly, it helps you to understand where your money is going. And so,
Absolutely.
with every aspect of our life, we need a budget. So, you know, when you create a budget, what goes into a budget? First of all, you got to be organized, right? You got
Hmm.
to know, what debt do I currently have? And I tell people, again, we talked about this earlier, on paper, on purpose. You cannot create a budget in your head. You can't have a virtual budget, right? And say, oh, I know it's all in my head. No, we forget things. Things come up unexpectedly. So you should create a monthly budget every single month. Every single month. It's important. It's a lifestyle that should be a habit that we create no matter where we are in our financial situation.
Yeah, but it can be tough for many people. Some people listening may say, well, it's easy for you to say because you come from that background, right? You are literally an expert in this background, but how can an average person be more intentional about their budget? And are you able to paint a virtual picture on what an ideal budget looks like?
Sure. So, and I agree, and I'll tell everybody this up front.
Hmm.
Um, I didn't become, I wasn't born a financial expert. I think I said this earlier. Yes, I have 20 years of experience in the financial industry, but I also have tests and trials, right? I have
Absolutely.
experience, and honestly, experience is the best teacher.
Hmm.
And so I was overwhelmed in debt many years ago because I was trying to acquire riches rather than enjoying prosperity.
Oh, wow.
So I wanted the material things, right? I wanted that Lexus and Mercedes. I wanted, the 6,000 square foot home
Hmm.
and all the things that we think about, the latest and greatest. For the ladies, y'all know we love our purses, we love
And
our
shoes.
sunshades and shoes, right? So no, I'm no different. I wanted all of those things,
Hmm.
but those things could not come before me absolutely appreciating and being a better steward of what I already had.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now, it- you know, oftentimes people, and I'm sure I've been guilty of it before, that we talk about budgeting as if it's a noun, right? When in fact, when in fact we should be talking about it as if it's a verb, action. Action speaking. What are you doing? How are you doing it? So please state the difference between the word budget and budgeting. Is there a difference?
Yeah. So budgeting, you're exactly right. That's the verb. That's the action. It is always ongoing. A budget is what we have, but budgeting is what we do. And so, you start off, the first thing I would recommend, and there's two things you need to know. You need to know how much debt do you have, and
Mm,
that is bills. What do you have that you pay out every single week, every single month? What are those things? And write them down. You've got car note, utility bills, a mortgage or rent. You get haircuts, right?
mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, Write it all down. What is it that you spend your money on? Food, groceries, cell phone bills. Write it all out. That's the first thing, on paper, on purpose. How much is that? And I tell people, because honestly, budgeting doesn't happen in 1 month or one step.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very difficult task because it's something that we're not accustomed to. It requires discipline. And honestly, it could take you 4 to 6 months to really wrap your mind around what you're doing. So you want to have an accountability partner. You want to have someone, again, that circle of influence, who does budgeting really well month after month in my life that I know, that can sit down with me every single month and walk with me through that process.
Absolutely.
But
Now,
the first
earlier,
thing,
oh God, I'm sorry.
no, I'm just going to say the first thing, start writing it on paper. And it might take you a few months to really understand what you spend your money on. And that's okay. Let's start small. Every bill that comes in the mail, don't take it and shove it under the mattress or under your couch. Open it up, lay it out, put it in a folder, and say, okay, here are all the bills that's coming in the mail every month. Wrap your mind and accept that reality. So that would be the first step that I say. And again, it could take a couple of months for someone to really understand what is their debt, what are they spending their money on. And the second thing that I would say is, know how much income you have coming in,
Mm,
right?
right. Absolutely.
You know, some people say, "Oh, I make 75,000 or 100,000 a year." Okay, how much do you bring home?
Mm-hmm.
That is your net
Your net. Mm-hmm.
income, right? We
Right.
cannot pay bills on gross. We pay bills on net. How much do you bring home? So need to know, how much is that paycheck every week or biweekly or monthly? How much do you get paid? So I think that's important to know. Those two things initially before we ever start creating and writing out our budget. Know how much income we have coming in, how often that income comes in, and then what are we paying out? What do we pay bills for? What are we spending our money on?
Mm-hmm. Now, earlier you mentioned Dave Ramsey and how he continues to keep a budget, and we know that financially he seems to be fine, right?
Yes.
But if there's ever a point, is there ever a point when people should stop tracking costs and no longer need a budget?
No,
Okay.
I think that always gets us in trouble. And
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you, it has taken me 3 opportunities to get this whole financial stewardship right.
Wow.
I'm in debt, I come out of debt, and then I stop budgeting, and guess what happens? I go right back into debt again.
Insanity, right?
Insanity, right? This cycle. So what I learned is I had to sit down and self-evaluate and say, I've done this 3 times. Why am I constantly getting out of debt but going back into debt? And what I found is that one fundamental principle was budgeting. It
Mm,
was when I stopped budgeting, because now money is overflowing, right? So
right?
I don't think that I need a budget. But then what happens over a period of time, I forget and I lose track of where my money is going and what I'm really spending it on. And next thing you know, I'm back in this cycle of not having money and then wanting to borrow money. So the one constant thing for me was was budgeting. And I realized that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, the light bulb goes off.
Mm-hmm.
The discipline that I have to continue to do no matter where I am in my financial journey. That's the one constant.
Right. But why do people, they get to that level, and we're all guilty of it. we get to the point where we think that it's okay to quit budgeting? Is it a thing of fear of having that paper, seeing it on paper on purpose, right? Are we fearful of seeing it written down or thinking that, oh, we've made it or we're ahead now, so we're good?
I
Because we
think
know
that's
that the money's going to be there. So why do
right.
we need to keep tracking it?
Right. I think that's it. It's the latter that you said, it, that we get comfortable. Now we have the money. So there's no need for us to really continue budgeting because we get comfortable. We
Hmm.
have it. But if you realize we start, we're all creatures of habit. We're
Hmm.
excited about what we have, but then we start splurging again. And there is nothing wrong with splurging. But if it's in my budget to splurge, then I'm more conscious of it. If it's in my budget to splurge, and set it out for my friends, twice a month,
Hmm.
and that's okay. But if I start setting it out every week, I'm not conscious about where I'm spending my money. So even putting those kinds of things to enjoy yourself, to enjoy entertainment, you want to budget those things just so that you always have an awareness of where you're spending your money. And then the budget also says, hey, Beth, you're getting out there. You're doing a little too much. This is not what you really want to do. So budget keeps us in line. It keeps us in order. Everything that we do, we ought to do it in decent and in order.
Absolutely. Now, why is forecasting such a bad idea when you're trying to create a budget, especially just starting out? Why is forecasting a bad idea?
So yeah, forecasting are those things that are coming, right? They're
Hmm.
not things that are happening right now. And so for most of us, we got to deal with the right now before we start projecting about what's to come. Oftentimes we're so worried about what's to come that we've totally missed where we are right now. And I do think that there is an element at some point initially, it's I got to figure out where I am right now so that I can create a vision of where I want to go. And it
Hmm.
requires baby steps, taking it one step at a time to get to ultimately where we need to be. And again, that's discipline. Discipline is hard. Again, I mentioned I was in and out of the cycle, and I'm thinking something's not right. And then I started challenging the process, or I start saying that doesn't really work. I mean, we've all said that, right? Budgeting
Right.
doesn't work for me. No, budgeting works. We're just not disciplined to remain faithful to it. And when we do, we find that our circumstances and our situation changes. So forecasting, I think, it has its place, but
Hmm.
not initially in our budgeting. We want to make sure that we understand where we are right now, being prepared for. Oh my goodness, the attacks of unemployment, right? Being
Right.
prepared, that's the forecast. We know that those things are going to come, unexpected expenses, those things are going to happen. Natural disasters, those things are going to happen.
Hmm.
But if we start planning for where we are right now, dealing with what we have right now, um, we can forecast so much better. And when those unexpected things happen, our house isn't shaken as much because we've been good stewards of the right now.
Right. And you spoke of also priorities and having discipline. So would it be correct to say that approximately 80% of people today and throughout the time are living paycheck to paycheck? And what steps can they take to get out of this system and to be able to even start a budget?
Yeah, that is so, that 80% number is so accurate for the state of most Americans, and that we're living paycheck to paycheck. We
Hmm.
are one paycheck away from being homeless,
Yeah.
one paycheck away from losing everything. And that is the sad state of our country and of many, many individuals. Um, and no one wants to be in that state.
Hmm.
It is a struggle, whether you make $20,000 a year or $100,000 a year. You need a budget. You need to really deal with the reality of where you are in your financial journey, in so that we can exit financial bondage. I do believe that we were all created to be good stewards of our resources, but to live a prosperous life, a balanced life, that it's not all about, we live in a society that, it's kind of that microwave philosophy. We want it all
Oh,
right
yeah.
now, and then it's instant, right?
Instant gratification.
It's instant gratification. And there are times where, we teach this with our children, when they can wait for something, or when they invest in something. My daughter, she loves shoes too, right? But she is she's an athletic kind of
Uh-huh.
girl. And so she loves the latest and greatest Nike shoes, whatever they got out there. And for most, sometimes these shoes are $200 and $300. And I'm going,
Hmm.
okay, well, what's your part in this, right?
Right.
Sometimes I think we're so busy trying to give our children, give ourselves those things that we think we deserve.
Right.
I will tell you that she has become the most grateful child I've ever met. Why? Because now that she's investing, so if something is $200, I say, well, how much do you have on it?
Right.
And if that means she has to go out and work is not a bad thing, for our children. It teaches them responsibility. More importantly, it teaches them to be grateful for the things that we work hard to provide them. And so now her attitude is different. Sometimes she'll say, oh, you know what? I don't need that. Especially if I say, no, that's 100% your investment.
Uh-huh.
Maybe that's not a good investment. Or, she just thinks about things differently when we can help people to invest in themselves. And
In other
sometimes
words, becoming more intentional with
more
your
intentional,
spending. Hmm.
more intentional with your spending and thinking about those things. Sometimes, when you have to think about a purchase, and you might have the money sitting there ready, but when you think about that purchase, then you say, do I really need it?
Hmm.
Like, why am I buying this? Am I buying it because I really need it? Is it a want? Is it a need? And it's times where it's totally okay to buy wants, right?
Hmm.
Life isn't always about just the need, but we can't buy a want over a need. We have to make sure that our needs are met. That's our shelter, our transportation, our food, our utilities, making sure the basic needs of life are met before we go out and indulge in all of our wants.
So what you just mentioned, would those be some of the non-negotiable expenses?
Oh my God, I love that word, right? There are non-negotiables. There are non-negotiables. There are things that's going to keep some peace in your household. Women want to make sure that they feel secure. And for security, it's not about the handbag or the shoe. Security for them is knowing that I have a roof over my head. We
Hmm.
can provide food on the table. The utility bill is made. And you know what? If we have some basic clothes on our backs, our children's needs are met. We are happy campers. We are happy
Absolutely.
campers. We want to know that we're secure, that the basic needs are met, and those things are non-negotiable.
Absolutely. Now, is there a such thing as it, or yeah, anything as such thing as good debt?
So, good debt, if there is such a thing, it would be those things that appreciate in value, those
Hmm.
things that grow in value. So, an example of good debt would be a home, right? A mortgage. So, if you typically, in most cases, when you buy a home, let's use at $100,000, over a course of time, that home value increases, that you build equity. So a mortgage would be considered good debt. An example of bad debt would be credit cards. That's an
Hmm.
example of bad debt. You get an incredibly high interest rate. Um, Most of the time, when you charge things, we're not disciplined enough to pay it off the next month. Like we tell ourselves that, but the
Hmm.
reality is our actions, we do something completely different. That balance carries, and it carries again that next month. And next thing you know, we're up to eyeballs in revolving debt. And the credit card debt absolutely hurts our credit.
Hmm.
And so I use this example. If you have $1,000 credit limit, try not to charge more than 29 to 30% of that limit. So if you have $1,000 credit card limit, don't charge more than $300 at a given time, because it would adversely impact your credit in a negative way if you do. So $300 is more that you should really charge at any given time. Try to manage that, get it paid off. And if you need to use it again, it's available to you. Most people use credit cards as a emergency fund, which is
Mm.
an absolute no-no. So good debt, a mortgage, because it appreciates in value. An example of bad debt is credit cards, because it impacts you in a negative way. It creates terrible habits that keep us in financial bondage.
Okay, so would it be safe to say that credit cards are budget breakers?
They will break the budget. Absolutely. They are considered budget breakers. They do not, they don't enhance our financial lifestyle. So I always tell people, if you want a new refrigerator, save up for it. You know, Home Depot and Lowe's, they run those same sales. Have you ever seen this? Hey, you got 5 days left. Our sale is going to be gone. But guess what,
Yep.
guys? We're going to run a new sale the next month.
Yes.
So, we have to be mindful too of the marketing. Again, it causes us to panic, and it causes us to say, oh my gosh, we got to get it right now.
Hmm.
No, they're going to run another sale, I promise.
Or you
Uh,
can take that same coupon in there and it will honor it most times.
and they're going to honor it, right? So, yeah, just not getting so caught up in the marketing and the I got to have it right now, or I'm going to lose it. And sometimes we'll find that if we just wait, we get a better deal, get a
Right.
better opportunity. I love when I have to buy new appliances. I'm like, nope, I'm going to wait, because they're going to have a greater sale. September, October, they're going to put a 40% off on that. I'm going to get the same refrigerator that I wanted, but I'm going to save 40% on it. So
Absolutely.
so much markup. And again, it's just being thoughtful and intentional. That was a word you used earlier.
Hmm.
Being intentional about our purchases and planning for them. So yeah.
Now, you talked about briefly about having a home. We do know there are individuals out there who do not believe that, they believe in renting, right? They think that they don't want the responsibility of having a home. If we own a home, then we have to pay for the appliances when the appliances break, the hot water heater go out. Even though those things may not happen for 5 to 10 years, some people do not want that personal responsibility. They want it to remain on their landlord, right? So, is there an upside to renting a house versus owning a house for those individuals who just really believe that renting is just fine? This is what I'm going to do because I don't want the responsibility of being a homeowner ever.
So, we don't know the day nor the hour when our time on this earth is up.
Mm-hmm.
But let's say we're going to live till we're 90 years old.
Mm-hmm.
That means you're going to be paying rent at least 70 years of your life. And think about this. If you bought a house, you could buy two houses and have them paid for in
By
that
the time of
70
renting.
years of life, right? Now
Mm-hmm.
you have
Absolutely.
some equity, you have some ownership. Oh my goodness. But guess what? You get to leave a legacy. You get to
Mm-hmm.
leave two homes
Uh-huh.
to a family member, to your children, that they get to live in forever and never have to worry about shelter
Yep.
over their heads. But if we have this mindset of I'm going to rent because I don't want the responsibility of maintenance and upkeep, you're going to always find yourself in a cycle of bondage.
Yeah.
We to pay rent for 70 years versus, just say you only want one house, but in
Mm-hmm.
30 years having that home paid for and now it's yours and no one can kick you out. It belongs to you. And then you can leave it for generations to come.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, we know that, and I must admit, I am guilty of subscriptions. I tell you, oh Lord, I can give you the long list of subscriptions that I have from A to Z. So, should people, especially right now with this pandemic going on, should people pull out their, account statements and begin to go down the line and look at all the subscriptions that they have and begin to cancel some of those subscriptions, or, say, okay, well, they may be okay. Because is that a budget pincher where we can look at where we can possibly save because if they're not being able to, once again, prioritize, right? Priorities. Is
Yes.
it important to even have those? What do you need them for? Is there a better package that you may be able to purchase that you may not need all of the different subscriptions?
Yeah, and there's so many different subscriptions out there, and I love my subscriptions too. But I think I totally agree with you. I think that it's an opportunity for us to, sit back and say, do I really need this right
Hmm.
now? Can I cancel this subscription? Can I do without? And then more importantly, what's a better use of my dollars? So, I always tell people, if you're going to cancel something, you want to replace it with something. So,
Mm-hmm.
hey, if I'm going to cancel all these subscriptions and I'm going to save an additional, $100 a month because I've done so, what is the best use now of my $100? Man, I can really put it on that credit card, get out of debt, and come back to my subscriptions. So delay does not mean deny.
Mm-hmm.
I think we got to make sure we understand that. Delay does not mean denied. It means that I have a better use of my dollars at this point. And when I pay this credit card bill off, or when I get caught up on my mortgage or my rent, when I get this car paid off, now I have hundreds of dollars that now I can come back to that subscription. And so I do think it's prioritizing, taking this time. I know many of us have been impacted by
Mm-hmm.
COVID-19, and while it seems like we're opening up the country again, for many of us, we're still struggling. We still have not gone back to work yet. We're
Right.
still in a financial crisis, and we have heard and we've read about the disparities of minority-owned businesses and African Americans not being able to take advantage of the stimulus money. And so I often think that it's so important for us to teach and understand, but more importantly, practice financial discipline, so that when you talk about a forecast, this was a forecast that none of us expected, right?
Right.
None of us could have ever really truly planned for. But had we done all the necessary steps prior to this, maybe we might not have felt the impact as strongly. And so this is a great opportunity for us to go back and reevaluate what we're spending our money on and deciding, do I really need that subscription? And I'm going to tell you, I love my sorority. You mentioned that. And we have the Delta box. And I'm like, oh, I just got to have that sweater that's in there. And I've got to have those pearls, But for many, I said, hey, is this the right time? I've enjoyed it for more than a year. So do I need to put it off right now? I'm going to come back to it, but is now the right time for me to continue to indulge in that? And so I agree. It's a great time to reassess
Mm-hmm.
and give priority to what should be priority.
And earlier we talked about the the gadgets or the appliances and things of that sort, but saving money for known expenses versus paying down debt, which is most important?
um, when you pay down debt, it gives you more money to buy the things that you desire.
Hmm.
Debt limits you from acquiring the things that you want or having the latest and greatest of the things that you want.
Mm-hmm.
Debt will always limit you from that. So the priority, always pay off the debt. Not just pay it down, but pay it off and close it out.
Okay.
Right? Close it out.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
now, instead of that money going to debt, you get to have more money to save for the things that you desire. And not only for the things that you desire, but how great do we feel when we're able to come together and give?
Yes. Paying it
You know,
forward.
right. It's done. You don't have to think about it. When I got married 5 years ago, and but it took us 2 years after our engagement to get married. And the reason it took that long is because we saved up and paid cash for the wedding. And so we decided to do a destination wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And we said, oh my goodness, people are not going to want to come. But you know what we said? The people that will come are the people that are going to be important to us.
Yes.
And it's going to be amazing. Instead of spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on a wedding where half the people
Yeah.
are going to talk about you,
Oh
they're going
yeah.
to talk about what you had and what you didn't have.
Oh
But
yeah.
we saved up. We went to Jamaica. We spent 2 weeks in Jamaica. We took 70 guests with us. And when we came back, the wedding was paid for. Before we even left, the wedding was paid for. So we didn't go carrying the baggage of debt with us.
Oh yes.
So we could not enjoy the beautiful ocean and the sand between our toes because we're so conscious going, oh my God, how much is that going to cost us, right? It was
Yes.
done. And so we enjoyed our experience so much more, so much that our friends, everybody enjoyed themselves because there was not this bill, this debt. You know, how
Lingering.
often do we spend something extravagant like that, vacations, and we come back and go, golly, it takes away the memory because we're so worried now about paying for something that had we just planned for, taken a little bit longer to do, we enjoy it better. So we create better memories.
Right. I love that you said that because I've owned a wedding and event company for the last 17 years. And I cannot tell you how many brides that I deal with, and it's, we talk about budgeting. That's the first thing. You have to have a budget. And a lot of brides are against it, no matter how much money they have. And I had a client years ago, I think it was like my second year in the business, and their wedding was like $80,000.
Oh my
Got
gosh.
divorced in 6 months. And they
Wow.
still had bills to pay. Now they could pay everything off because they had the money, but they just wanted to kind of pace themselves. But divorce in 6 months. So it's one of those things where I try to tell brides and people all the time, listen, a wedding is just a party for you and the other individuals, and you said it best, for people to come judge what you should have had, what you should not have had, why you have this person, why don't you have these flowers, or why don't you
Right.
have this, why you don't play this music, why you got this food, and why you chose this venue. It's the thing of opinions, and I always say opinions are like buttholes. Everybody has one, and sometimes they stink,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it becomes one of those things there. But budgeting, even for people in that world there that may have the money, destination weddings are phenomenal because once again, you said it best. You went and you combined things. You also had a honeymoon while you were there. So you killed that bird with one stone, right?
Yes.
And that's just phenomenal. So when you came back home, your husband and you guys had peace because it was not about, oh, now we got to continue to pay for this or we got to continue to worry about that. We've done everything at once. Now we can enjoy moving forward and building our life together for eternal. So
Absolutely. And
good
you said a
stuff.
key word. You said a key word, peace.
Yes.
I mean, how many of us desire peace in our
Mm.
life, right?
Oh my
But
word.
we don't have to worry and we're not stressed. You know, a lot of our health issues is because of stress, because we
Hmm.
don't have peace in our life. We don't have financial peace. We don't have physical peace, you know, in terms of our health. And so peace is something that we should all desire. You know, I had to come to a place, and I think we all come to a place where, you know what, I can no longer worry about what my friends think. And even the people that are closest to us, our family, you know, oftentimes I look at them and I go, well, see, they're already unhappy. Misery loves company,
Oh yes.
but I want to be different,
Hmm.
you know, and everybody used to laugh when I was like, I'm on a budget, you know, when I would go to the grocery store, you know what I do? I shop online now,
Uh-huh.
groceries, and I do grocery pickup. The reason that I shop online is not because I can't go to the grocery store, but you know what? When we go to the grocery store, we pick up things that are not on our budget because
Oh yes.
they've got it packaged right. So you know what I do? I shop online now and I
Hmm.
do grocery pickup. And I shop online because every time I put something in my cart, it tells me how much my items are. And if I got a $400 budget for the month, when I get to 401,
Taking something out.
we got to go. These Oreo cookies y'all want, we can't get them this month, you know, because we got to have toilet paper, right?
Absolutely. Oh yes.
So, but it helps you to keep everything in perspective. And that's what we're really talking about, is keeping things in perspective. It is okay to splurge, but understand if your budget for groceries is $400 a month and you decide you're going to spend $450, guess what? That $50 it's got to come from something else.
Yeah, I am. You're gonna be pulling.
You're going to be pulling. And what we don't want to do is rob Peter to pay Paul.
Mm-mm.
But you know what? But we want to be mindful and say, you know what? I spent an extra $50 there this month. Maybe that's okay. Or maybe I have to say, you know what? My entertainment, maybe I won't do the movies this month because really there's not any good movies out. I'll catch
Right.
that next month, right?
Right.
It's just this whole perspective of, it's like all my friends, we're so funny. They go, well, Beth, you've got the money. And I said, but I don't understand why you don't.
Right.
And the difference between me and you is just simply discipline. I want to wait on the cruise. Y'all want to go right now. But when I go, I don't want to bring it back home. I want to have
Absolutely.
that peace.
Absolutely.
I want to have that peace. And I think this is what this is all about. Just really making sure that, and here's the other thing. Trying to keep up with the Joneses. I tell everybody, even though the last name is Jones, they don't really exist, right?
Right.
Everybody, and especially in our society today, we're flossing, we're faking it to make it. I think the reality is I do not like that slogan, fake it till you can make it.
No.
I do think that we ought to dream and have a great vision for ourselves, but I also think that there's work behind the scenes to get us to where we are, right? When we see someone that is successful, when we see someone who is debt-free, when we see someone who understands financial principles and stewardship, they did not get there overnight. And majority were not born with the silver spoon in their mouth. They had to work. They had to put practices in place, disciplines in place, like budgeting, in order to get to where they are today. And it is so wrong for us to hate on them.
Mm-hmm.
It is so wrong to be
Absolutely.
jealous and envious. What we should do is say, you know what? If they can do it,
We can do
so
it.
can I. Absolutely.
Absolutely. But in this time, though, people may be saying, guys, this sounds great. Beth, this sounds phenomenal. I love what you're teaching us. But how can people who, during this time, especially save money and budget during these challenging times?
Yeah. Here's the thing. It all starts with what we think.
Mm,
What we think, it is what we become,
mm-hmm,
it's what we do. So I challenge each of us, even
mm-hmm.
if we are on our journey, we still have to constantly change our habits, change our attitudes, be mindful of the things that we meditate on, be mindful of the things that we think about. Are they positive? Are they negative? Are they things that give us hope and inspiration? Are they things that just constantly drag us down and get us in a place where we're angry and bitter and resentful? It starts with our mind. What are we meditating on? What are we
Mm-hmm.
thinking about? And then start to change those habits and attitudes. I'm a firm believer. You have to write it out. If nothing else, get a little sticky, put it on your mirror and say, think good thoughts today.
Mm-hmm.
Do one thing, develop a good habit today. I don't want us to, oftentimes I think we try to do it all at one time. If there's 10 things that we need to change about ourselves or 10 things that we need to meditate on, we try to do all 10 at one time. You can't do that. It overwhelms you. Then you get to a place where you're discouraged because it's not happening fast enough. Take one thing and for a week or a month, just meditate on that. Now you're starting to build. We need to lay that foundation. We can't build a house in one day. We
Right.
start with the foundation, and guess what we have to do? We have to let that foundation settle a little bit to make sure that it's sturdy and it's going to hold up now the walls that we're starting to build upon the foundation. So what is the foundation? The foundation is our mind. It is what we think about. It is what we meditate on. Make sure that that is solid, because once you start to build upon that, yeah, there's going to be times where the wall might fall down, but we
Mm-hmm.
definitely don't want the foundation to crack. And even if it cracks, we want to make sure that we can go in and repair it, that it doesn't completely fold. So it's what we think about, changing
Right.
the habits and the attitudes that honestly got us into the situation in the first place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we also know that people outsource their fitness and nutrition. Like we go and we buy all this stuff for fitness and nutrition and health. But what about money?
I remember watching Oprah Winfrey. she did an episode of a couple of people that had been winning the lottery, and they were winning millions of dollars. And I remember one lady had won multi-millions of dollars, and she was asking Oprah for some advice. And the one thing Oprah said is, write your own checks. And the lady said, really? And she says, oh, yes, it's your money. You need to know what you're spending it on. You don't need to outsource your finances, right? That is how we get robbed. There are many professional athletes or people that they outsource their finances. They let somebody else handle that because it's just too difficult for us, or I just don't understand it, or I just don't like it. And the next thing you know, you don't have what you thought you had. It's not growing for you because people will rob and take from you what you have been so graciously blessed with. So outsourcing our finances, absolutely not. Getting in, learning how to deal with it. Now, we're not going to be an expert in everything, right? We're not going to be an investment guru, but we need to have some basic knowledge and understanding of it. We need to know that when we're interviewing various financial advisors, what they say makes sense. It's that wisdom, right? We know that they know what they're talking about. Yes, I believe that they're going to be a good fit for me to grow my money. So we don't have to be the expert, but we need to know and have a basic understanding of how it works, how things work, so that we partner with advisors, but we never let them control 100% of what belongs to us.
Absolutely. Now, how important is it to set annual goals? Because we talk about the weekly and the monthly, but what about annual goals?
Yeah, setting annual goals. I think setting annual goals about things that you want to do or want to accomplish. So oftentimes annual goals, we should do this to say, by the end of this year, I want to have this credit card paid off, or I want to save, $1,000, or I want to save up for my vacation. I want to have a dream vacation, and I want to save up for that. I think having those annual goals become very important, and then a way for you to measure, are you on target with that? I remember one year I said, I want to save $12,000 by the end of the year. Well, that meant I had to put $1,000 up every single month.
Oh, yeah.
But it also meant that some of the things I was doing, I couldn't go do. I couldn't go to Starbucks every morning and, get my latte with my protein box, right?
Right, absolutely.
So, that was $50 to $100 a week right there.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So when you set goals, annual goals, you got to be careful because it's a big, to think about $12,000 a year becomes overwhelming. But I knew that that's what I wanted to do by the end of the year. So I broke that down into monthly goals, which was $1,000. And then I even went further and said, now, how am I going to do that? And again, there were some sacrifices I had to make. I couldn't, instead of getting my hair done every week, I had to go every other week. And instead of going to Starbucks, guess what I had to do? Start making my own coffee at home. So, there come sacrifices that go along with your goals, especially those that you want to accomplish over a year. But make sure they're measurable. Make sure that you can come and look and say, ooh, I'm on target, or I've fallen a little bit behind. How can I get back on target? And here's the reality. I didn't make it that first year to 12,000, but I did 8. And 8 was far better than 0. And guess what? I still got to celebrate that success.
Absolutely.
I still got to celebrate that success. And I think that we shouldn't beat ourselves up because we didn't necessarily reach the goal, but that we understand where we fell short. And then next year, guess what? We put a better plan together.
Right. Something is better than nothing, right?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, what do weeds and budgeting have in common?
What do we and budgeting have?
Weeds. weeds, like, like the plant weeds and the trees, how do
Mm,
they
mm,
go
mm.
differ?
Yeah. So, with when you want to have that beautiful yard, you got to pluck out those weeds, right?
Uh-huh.
You got to pluck out those things that don't necessarily make sense, that they're not good for a beautiful, cured, caring yard.
Mm-hmm.
And so, budget is the same way. Like I said, you're not going to sit down this month and create your budget and have it perfect. It takes a good 4 to 6 months to really create a good, healthy budget. And so, what
Mm-hmm.
you're going to do, you're going to be plucking out those things that don't make sense. You're going to be fertilizing the things that do.
Right.
And so, but weeds and budgets, they're very similar in that you pluck out those things that don't make sense so that at the end, you have a beautiful yard, you have a beautiful, healthy budget that now you understand, and it helps you to, again, to create those goals and visions that you desire for yourself.
Good stuff. Now, I want to ask the question on the importance of paying yourself first. But
Mm,
before I go there, I want to also in turn ask the importance of those in the church, right?
yes.
Paying your tithes, that reaping what you sow, right? Because a
Yes.
lot of people say, well, I have my budget here, but this month I know I got to pay all this stuff and I want to do this stuff, so I can't pay my tithes. Let's go spiritual and biblically for before we leave here, and let's talk about the importance of, yes, paying yourself first if that is important, but also making sure you're sowing the seed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The law of sowing and reaping. And it kind of goes back to the question that I mentioned earlier. How has what you've been doing been working for you? And it's true. There are times where we pay bills, we pay for our needs, our wants, and everything else. And then we look over and we say, well, I don't have anything left for God who provided it all in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, it's a change of mindset.
Mm.
It's a change of mindset. And I will tell you that it goes back again to riches versus prosperity. Riches is paying everything first, and then, hey, if I got anything left over for God, then I'll give it to him, and if I don't, hopefully I can catch him next month.
Wow.
Prosperity is saying, you know what? I understand where my provisions come from. And so I'm going to take that leap of faith and say, God, I'm going to give back to you first what you have so graciously blessed me with.
Mm.
And that is a huge mindset change. I can remember when I started that principle of tithing and giving God his first fruits. I thought, oh my God, this seems weird and crazy and just flat out dumb, you know? And because I said, hey, I'm going to give to him, and I don't even know, because more times we have more month than we do money, right? We got
Oh,
more
yes.
than we do money. But you know what? I said, hey, I want to change. I want my life to be different because what I've been doing isn't working.
Right.
I want to try something different. And I remember sitting at church and I said, I mean, honey, that prayer was, Lord, I don't even know how this is going to work, but I'm going to trust you. I'm going to depend on you. I'm going to give you, because you tell me that if I give it to you, you will provide.
Yes.
At the end, I tithe first. I started writing out bills, the first of the month, and then I paid the ones for the second half of the month with that 15th paycheck. By the end of the month, I had a surplus in my checking account, and all I could do was say, I don't
But
know how
God.
you did it, but God, and I thank you. I'm glad you did it, right? It was that excitement that I don't even know how this happened. So you know
Right.
what? It wasn't my own will.
That's right.
And at that moment, I had to say, okay, so you know what? If you did it for me this month, I'm going to trust it again. Now, still apprehensive, right? Still got a lot
Right.
of stuff going on. But you know what? I said, hey, I'm going to trust you again. And
Right.
I kept doing that one discipline. I kept doing it. And then all of a sudden, I just started relaxing. Like, hey, I don't know how that bill's gonna get paid, but I know it is because he's
Right.
already showing me these last 3 months. And then I go to the mailbox and there's a check in the mail. I'm like, see, thank you.
Right on time.
Right on time, right? It is a leap of faith. There is no doubt about it. It is a leap
Absolutely.
of faith, but we have to trust in a higher power, in a higher provision. And honestly, we have to be obedient.
Oh, yes.
We have
That's
to
a
be
good word.
obedient. We
Obedient.
have to be obedient.
Absolutely. So, if there are a few nuggets of advice that you can impart on the listeners, what would they be?
On paper, on
On purpose.
purpose.
I'm loving that. I'm going to take that. So, I'm going to make that as part of my regular, words on
Yes.
paper, on purpose. So, if you hear it again, I'll give you credit, but I'm going to say on paper, on purpose.
And here's the other one. Delayed is not denial.
Right.
Delayed is not denial. Delayed does not mean no. It just
Right.
means
Not right now.
now. Timing is not good, right?
Right.
And then what do I think and meditate on each day? I think sometimes in order for us to start seeing the light at the end of the tunnel,
Mm-hmm.
we have to start embracing hope. We have to start thinking differently.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing, we got to change habits. We've got to change attitudes in order for something different to happen in our lives. You can't keep doing the same things the same
Expected.
way,
Mm-hmm.
expecting something different. You said it earlier. That is insanity.
Mm-hmm.
And if what you've been doing is not working for you, try something different. And don't just try that something different one time, because you've been very consistent at the bad behaviors, right? So
Absolutely.
consistent, right, at doing something different.
Right.
6 months of doing something different. That's consistency. And then you call me up and say, Beth, I've been doing it for 6 months and it ain't working. You know what I'm going to say? Tell me what you've been doing. Tell me what you've been doing, because I'm going to guarantee you that there's something that wasn't consistent.
Oh my. Step on toes, right on you.
Step on toes, right? But yes, those things on purpose, on paper, on purpose. Delayed is not denial, and changing habits and attitudes. Finding positive things that we meditate on. Starting those things, I think it's going to open up windows and opportunities for us to be different. And then it's okay. You're not going to get it right the first time. Remember, it's taken me 3 cycles. But it's okay. It's okay to have those cycles, but understand why you're having those cycles. So you just keep getting better and better, and then celebrate the small successes. If you had a goal to save up $500, but you saved $250, celebrate the $250.
Absolutely.
Celebrate. We have so much to celebrate in life.
Good stuff. So what is next for Miss Beth Richardson?
Well, I'm so blessed. We're going to see where this leads me. I am actually working on my doctor in ministry with a focus in biblical leadership. And so my dissertation is centered around how biblical leaders can facilitate an exodus from financial bondage in the African American community.
Oh, that's good. I want to be there.
I think we have to get back. When we think about our heritage,
Yes.
Everything began with the church for us. When we think about education, the church was our schools many, many years ago, right?
Yeah.
The church has always been that place of gathering, of fellowship, of encouragement, of hope. And I think we have to get back there. Now, I'm not saying that we have to get back there in the traditional sense of being in that building, but we are the church.
Absolutely.
And so how do we facilitate this financial exodus, helping us to get out of financial bondage as a people so that we're able to live in legacy and inheritance for our children's children? And so with this, I'm going to be talking with so many people and doing all kinds of focus groups and observations and workshops and really and really stepping on toes, as you said. The stepping on toes is not designed to hurt or crush or I told you so.
Right.
The stepping on toes is an awareness of, you know what? I know I need to change the way my habits and my attitudes of what I've been doing. And now I can do it with a team of people. We can all walk through this thing together to get us on the other side. So I'm just looking forward to the outcomes of what's going to take place as I continue to dig a little deeper into all of this research and hopefully come up with an action plan that's meaningful for so many people of color. That now it's going to be for people, no matter who, but I think it's so important for us to really hone in on people of color, helping us to have better minority-owned businesses, being successful there, and then giving back and leaving that wonderful legacy and having a life of prosperity versus riches.
Absolutely. And it's important because the community needs it. We have to be mindful to take care of our own community first. And
Absolutely.
I don't think that a lot of us have not been doing a great job at that. We go outside of our community and then we complain. So I look forward to the things that you're going to bring forward, and you'll always have a platform here on Hindsight Media. So anytime you want to come back to have a conversation or to want us to do a commercial, whatever, have it, you are here. You have it. Just know that we want to have you back on here because it's been some great information, and it's never enough time to keep it going, right?
Oh yeah, I know. But thank you so much for having me. I have thoroughly enjoyed and I'm going to look forward to coming back and maybe there's specific topics that you might hear from your listeners that say spend a little bit more time on this.
Yes.
I'm all for it. So thank you again for the opportunity.
Yes, absolutely. Now, feel free to take a moment to give a shout out and thanks to your villagers and those who've been, your mentors and been there with you throughout the time that you just want to say thank you. And as I always tell people that don't charge it to her heart, charge it to her mind because we may forget somebody. It's not that deep, but it's not
I
that
tell
deep.
you that it is, the one thing that I am very grateful for are the people that God has placed into my life, even
Hmm.
just to give a one-time encouraging word.
Yeah.
Everybody is not going to be in your life for a lifetime,
Hmm.
but they come into your life at the perfect time. And so my spiritual mentors, my financial mentors, uh, family, friends, they all know who they are. I thank them often, and I think that that's really key. I thank them all the time for constantly pouring into me or for just being there at a very specific time where I needed them most and I didn't realize that I needed them. And so always just going back and writing a handwritten thank you note or picking up that phone saying, just thank you again for being present.
Hmm.
Thank you for that encouraging word or sending a text. I don't think we can do enough of that. So I definitely have to thank God because
Okay.
none of this is even possible without him. And then I thank my parents, my mom and dad, and my siblings, and my family, my husband, my daughter. I also thank my church family, my work family, and even those that are in my cohort for my doctoral program. We're also encouraging to each other. And you know what? I just want to thank the people. I say this all the time, and I know people think it's crazy, but I thank my haters.
Oh yeah.
I thank them because there's two things. I know that they can't do anything with me that God will not allow, and whatever God allows is going to grow and mature me. So I thank them for having that place in my life for me to constantly grow. And I thank them because they keep me on my toes. They keep having me to get better and better at what I'm doing. And so, I thank everybody. I just thank everybody because we could not be and do what we do without every individual having some sort of impact, on our lives. I thank our ancestors, I thank our history, because so many people fought for our rights to be where we are today. So it really truly does take a village.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and none of this we have done on our own. So, and I thank you, because if not for you and your platform and what you do to allow so many people to hear the importance of financial stewardship and all of the topics that you share and bring light to, um, you never know how many people that you're touching and impacting that go, man, I needed to hear that again.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I just thank you for your encouragement. Thank you for allowing me to be human. And so thank you for what you're doing as well.
Thank you as well. And I tell you what, it with guest speakers without you guys, it is definitely impossible for us to keep it going. So I truly am humbled and appreciative of your time, your energy, and your education, and what else you're going to bring to offer. So where can our listeners connect with you offline and online, and as well as purchasing Chopping the Budget?
Yeah, so actually, I would definitely say go to Amazon.com. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Shopping budget is definitely there. And our website is choppingbudget.com. So, love to hear from you there. If you have additional questions, you can email me also at choppingbudget@gmail.com.
Okay.
So, love to hear from you all there. And go to Amazon. We'd love for you to purchase that book and love your feedback and thoughts.
Absolutely. Well, good stuff, good stuff. And so, listeners, remember, on paper, on purpose, and delay does not mean denial. So, again, Elizabeth, I thank you for joining us tonight. And hindsighters, thank you for tuning in to Keeping It Real with Miss T on Hindsight Media Radio 103.5 FM with our special guest, Miss Beth Richardson. And on the platform, we always give you something good to talk about. So visit our website at www.hindsightmediaradio.com. Same place, same time, Mondays at 3 a.m., 7 p.m., and 9 p.m. And until next week, good night.